Hi, you're welcome to this class once again. In this class, we'll be looking at how to use the order by statement. Now, we already come and we have, selected the first data set in the Bigquery public data set, right? So this data set is located under the Austin 311 file and has the name of 311 service request as the name of the data set. Now, when we look into the schema, we can see that the data set basically has different descriptions, it has a detail, and you can preview this data set to, basically see like what is this data set like. Now, you might be told to do some kind of analysis where you are supposed to, give some kind of arrangement. So if you could see like the transaction has, it seems like some kind of service request that basically was created on a certain date and was updated on a certain date and was like closed on a certain date or something like this. Now, maybe you want to give some kind of you want to report this data set, but you basically have to report it in a chronological order, right? And so here, maybe what you have to do is just find a way to order this data set and just present it. Similar to what you will do on Excel to sort the sheet by, sorting the whole sheet using maybe A to Z or something, or using some kind of numbers. This is similar to what we will do now. To do this, we go with a normal style of querying table, and then we will select the columns we would like to see. So maybe here we want to select the unique key, which is basically like the identifier of the different cases. So we want to see the unique key. We select the unique key, right? And then we also select maybe the complaint description, right? So just the complaint description, right? And then we select the date, right? So when we want to select, so maybe we want to select the created date because we would like to sort the unique key or the complaint, based on the date that the request was created. So now what we have is we're selecting the unique key, complaint description, created date. We're selecting it from this data set, right? And then we decide to basically now apply our order by, because if we were to run this data set, what we will get as a result will be just another round of data set, but without any kind of order to it. But if we wanted to order this data set by this created date, so we can write an extra function which is basically order by. So, and then we will call the name of this data set, right? So we're going to order it by the created data set. Now, we could decide if we run this data like this, we notice that it will go from lower to higher. So basically the earliest date, which is 2014, and then it will gradually increase. So you would notice like it's the 2nd of January 2014, but by the time you go even lower, you will even get to a point where the whole data set on the last page is basically 2021 July. So basically you see that the data set is increasing as it is going. So now if you would like to have the data set the other way around, you would have to include, beside the created date, you would have to include something called DESC. Now, this ESC is basically a descending trend. Now, the exact opposite of DESE, which is descending, is ascending. So you could also put the ascending, and then you get the same answer that you get when you do not put anything there. So this is like the code for ascending, but you will get the same thing as not putting any direction So it's the same, but then when you put the descending, you will get a data set that ranks the highest, the most recent case, and then basically falls from that to the oldest case. So here you have like July 2nd, and when you go down, maybe you see like this is starting at 9:29, but when you get to down the table, it's getting to 7:20, which is like some 2 hours before. Now if you keep going to the next page, you see like we have like the 1st of July, and then when you go to the next page, you have, you still have 1st of July here, but the time is decreasing, and then you get like this 30th of June. So this is like the trend. It's just basically like trying to order the data set by a certain field. Now you could also order by 2 fields. So for instance, you would like to order this data set by maybe, for instance, you would like to order it by 2 fields. You could decide that maybe you want to order the data set by the complaint description and maybe the owning department, for instance. Now, so maybe here we decide that we have the complaint field, right? So we include we include the owning department, right? And then we remove this created date just for an in casity. Now, basically, when we come here and we say we want to run this query, we notice that if you are running without the order by, you get the same thing, right? So you get like a data set that is just basically like random. But now you want to order by the column called the order by. So you decide to order by complaint description and then owning department. Now, if you decide to go this route, you notice that you have basically called this ascending and ascending. So when you run this query, what happens is that the whole data set first arranges based on the first part, and then when there is a tie, it basically arranges with the second part. So when you notice that there's so many complaint description that is the same and all belonging to the same department. So the first set of data is, like tying based on these two, the same columns. So we could basically put something that makes the case slightly different. So then it basically changes the dimension. So maybe we could add something like an address, right? So the incident address. So when we run this query, what basically we will see is that we will see that, yes, it will be ordered by these 2 fields, basically with the most, the ones that is closest to A starting in first and then basically like going alphabetically down. Now, if you notice this, there is a lot of tie here, and because of that, like the data set has been so, and maybe when you get to the last page, you will notice that you have like the wildlife exposure, and this is like a second column. Now, this is following a certain type of pattern, right? Because, for every complaint description, maybe it's going to the same, for the same type of complaint description, it will go to the same department because the same department owns this type of description. So this is like a kind of duplication of like, the column. So maybe we'll just remove the owning department from the data set, and then we just keep only complaint description. Now, maybe now we do not, because we notice like the complaint description is basically like the same because it has a lot of similar types of complaint decision, but we want to still rank this based on maybe the unique key. So we want the unique keys that is like, we want to have a chronological arrangement of the unique key in cases when there is a tie. So when it's a tie, so in this case, wherever you find like the same thing, then all these cases are in a tie. But what would be the deal breaker? So here we'll first sort by this complaint description, and then we will sort by the unique key. So when we run this query, what happens is we will notice immediately that so we have a tie because everyone is like, related to the complaint description. But then the unique key will now be sorted. Because there wouldn't be a tie because it's unique to the individual cases. Now it will be sorted, in a chronological order from a number perspective. So you see like the 15 is gradually going from 15 to 16, and then it is going to 17, and then it's going to 18, basically like that down the line. So this basically creates some kind of chronological order that basically can be used to distinguish the data set. So also, if you wanted to maybe say like if for one row you would like to use ascending, but then the other row you would like to use descending. So basically, for a column you use the ascending, and then for the other column you use the descending. So maybe we could use ascending for the first row, and for the first column. So in this case we didn't even put the ascending because on the default the cases are on ascending, but we can put it anyways and then say descending now. So what happens when we run the query? Now, when we run this query, what happens is the column, so basically it sorts this column first. And then when there is a tie, then it basically now arranges this column from a descending perspective. So from the highest to the lowest. So it's basically reducing in terms of the number down the trend. And you go from 21 to 20. And then maybe you go to 19, and then you go to 17, and all these kind of numbers. So this is like a way to sort. So basically you sort based on the fact that, like if you want to first sort a column, you put it first, and then you put the second column that you would like to sort on. So what happens in this case is when we get to, like another letter, like, wild exposure. If we go to wild exposure, we notice that by the time we get there, so wild exposure, I'm just trying to look for where wild exposure actually starts. So when wild exposure starts, so we will get there soon. It's a very huge data set, that's why. Anyways, so So basically, like we just noticed one major thing we noticed with the wild exposure, it's also like having the highest number and then it's basically reducing down the line, right? So if we go to the first page, we see like it first takes the lowest in terms of the alphabetical order, and then it takes the highest and basically goes down. Now, when these ties are solved, and then it will go to the next one on this line. So maybe you get to a B of maybe some other, letter that is following afterwards. So I think this is already a long video, but I hope you get the drift. If you don't, you can put your questions in the comment section, and then we could have a quick chat over it. So thank you.